At the end of episode 1, we kind of left you hanging. I had a nice steelhead on and we ran out of time in midair. Let's go back and see how that turned out. Did you ever wonder why all great movie producers are insane? You set up the perfect scene, go out and film it, and it turns out as rubbish. All because of the incompetence of others. Actors, technicians, cameramen, agents. There was more to this scene than meets the eye. Do you think it's easy to find a wild steelhead, point to it, and then catch it on video? You might spend the rest of your life waiting for that to happen. But we're a big operation here at the Basstravaganza, and money is no object. So we hired the steelhead to bite on camera. We pay them by the hour. They've got a real powerful union and they don't come cheap. And of course, a jumping fish costs more. Now, I had a great idea for this scene. I would point to my spot and then have an eagle fly over my head just as I make the cast. And I would chat a little bit with the eagle as it flew over my head. And then on the next cast, I'd hook a steelhead right where the eagle had just flown over. So I talked with the agents for the steelhead and the eagle and we set it all up. Here you can see me point to the spot where I'll hook the fish and then motoring up to it and casting along the way. Now I've got to my spot. This is where things started going haywire. This wasn't my fault. The cedar tree got in my way and the cameraman never warned me. So the plan is, the eagle will fly over the fish and I'll point up and salute the eagle and I'll say something witty like, "We're both after the same fish." And then I'll hook the steelhead on the next cast. And the eagle flew over right on cue, just as I made my cast. But it's too high. You can barely see it here crossing the little open spot of sky, just as my lure hits the water. And the idiot cameraman didn't aim high enough. He almost missed the eagle completely. I was so mad when I saw this footage, I refused to pay the eagle, and I fired the cameraman. So I lost another great scene because I'm working with incompetence. But I want to give you folks out there in video land a chance to experience this scene just like I did. So I used high-tech computer animation to make it appear as if the eagle really flew where he was paid to fly, and as if the idiot cameraman had actually paid attention and filmed what I told him to shoot. We're both after the same fish. And I took the liberty of dubbing in audio for the words I actually spoke to the eagle on that day, because the cameraman botched up the sound recording too. I wanted to explain this because my computer eagle is so realistic that you probably wouldn't be able to tell that it's not a real eagle if I didn't warn you. And I might get accused of fakery. And that would reflect upon the honor of bass fishermen everywhere. Because, as we all know, no bass fisherman has ever been known to tell a lie. So there goes the eagle. I'm fishing at the tail out of the lake here, where it flows out to become a river again. And there's my fish on the next cast. So anyway, to get on with my story, it turns out that this Basstravaganza is not as big of an operation as I had thought. I found out that I'm not just the fisherman, I'm the cameraman too. So it turns out that I fired myself. At first I was glad, because I could never get along with myself. Really, he's just a pig-headed moron, and there was always friction. But then myself filed a grievance against me with the Labor Relations Board, and they ruled in his favor. So I had to hire that jerk back, even though he's a total ditz. So now I'm stuck with an arrogant, incompetent dork of a cameraman forever. You can kill a fish by towing it behind a motorboat, but if you look at my rod, it's barely bent over. I'm not towing this fish. Both the steelhead and myself want to get to deeper water, and I'm actually racing the fish, trying to stay ahead of it. When I get far enough out, I'll stop and try to net it. You can see how this story ends. The perils of single barbless. But just like the Terminator, I'll be back. And maybe we'll do some business together again here someday, when the eagle and the cameraman have got their act together. Well, that was February, and now it's August. I know that some hardcore bass fishermen would call it sacrilege to fish for anything besides bass during summer. But I had so much fun chasing those metalheads last winter that a slow dong topwater bass bite this morning is enough to send me back up to my fave mountain lake. I've never caught a steelhead in August, but I never tried. If you remember the last episode, I'd invented some really hot bass lures, but I spaced out and dropped them all overboard. I was planning to burn the rest of my bass lures, but I changed my mind and actually went out bass fishing again this morning. But I only got a few bites because my lures didn't have any mojo. So I'm fed up with bass. It's been a terrifically hot summer here in BC. When you live in an old Volvo with no air conditioner, any temperature over 75 Fahrenheit is life-threatening. You either have to keep driving really fast with the windows open, or keep sipping ice-cold Slurpees, or head for higher ground. So I said the heck with bass fishing, and I drove way up into the mountains where it's cool. What a relief. Let's go looking for some more of those metalheads. Salmon are semoparous. They adhere to the Big Bang theory of sex. They spawn once in the fall, and then they all die. Steelhead are iteroparous. They often survive spawning, return to the ocean, and then return again to fresh water to spawn a year or two later. So-called winter steelhead usually return to fresh water in late winter. They may spend a few weeks or less in a river, spawn in March or April, and then head back to sea pretty quickly. To my knowledge, they never spawn more than once in a single year. Summer steelhead are the same species, but they live a very different lifestyle. They might return to the river of their birth almost any time, and stay in fresh water almost indefinitely, waiting for the perfect combination of gravel and river flow before they spawn. They're said to be the only salmonid other than Atlantic salmon that is iteroparous within one visit to fresh water. They may return in July, hang around until they spawn in November, and then hang around some more and spawn again in March, and then head back to the ocean again in April, roam the North Pacific for a couple of years, and come right back to fresh water and do it all over again. It's all very mysterious, and there hasn't been a lot of research done on the habits of summer steelhead here on Vancouver Island. Now, the best places to fish in any lake are usually the tail out, where the water flows out into a river, and the gravel bar at the top end of the lake, where the river flows in. There's nobody home at the tail out this afternoon, so I'm turning to the next most logical plan B. I'm a bass fisherman, eh? So let's try fishing for steelhead in the lily pad bed. I'm using 6-pound line and a $9.99 ultralight rod that I bought from the discount bin at my friendly neighborhood tackle store. A shout out to the harbor chandler. As I mentioned, cost is no object at the Basstravaganza. I'm just testing the new rod mostly, so I don't have the camera turned on. But pretty soon I get a bite. By the time the camera is turned on, the fish is tangled in the lily pads, but somehow it doesn't break off. This fish is fresh from the ocean. It's so silver bright you almost need sunglasses to look at it. Not the biggest metalhead, at least not yet anyway. If I let this fish go unharmed, it may be back here in a few years, much bigger and much stronger. Well, That was my first August steelhead. I knew they'd be here. I could smell them from Nanaimo. So I camped overnight and headed up to the top end of the lake in the morning. There may be some bigger fish there, so I switched to my other rod with 10-pound line. I wanted to try filming from a tripod on land, so I told the idiot cameraman to set the camera up on the gravel bar, pointing out towards my spot. The river, which is just a little trickle today, is flowing into the lake on the right. You can see that I'm wearing my expensive designer waders with my $300 felt-soled wading boots. Cost is no issue to the Basstravaganza. I'm going to work my way along the edge of this bar and introduce these fish to the work of Andre Mulnart and his wonderful spinner. You can see me slipping and sliding as the shoreline caves in. Only a few years ago the water was 20 meters deep where I'm walking now. But horrific clear-cut logging upstream from the lake triggered huge torrents of debris that have spewed enormous amounts of gravel and mud into the lake. And there's a heart-stopping vista in front of me. Big, wild summer steelhead rolling and frolicking in the dawn's early light. Now the cameraman screwed up again and set the tripod way too far back. But one of the good things about having the camera that far away is that if you get so excited watching these huge fish roll and swirl that you pee your pants, nobody will notice. If you don't get excited watching wild chrome or summer steelhead rising in front of you, you were born without the fishing gene. Better to stick to badminton or knitting. Or you might want to check your pulse, because you might already be dead. The fish are there, and they're frisky, but they just will not bite, even though I'm dragging my meps right in front of their noses. Actually, most of them are rising in deeper water, just beyond reach of my casts. I could sit right in the middle of them in my pontoon boat, but I want to catch one from shore and beach it and release it in front of the camera. There's a pack of fish off the river mouth, but I can't get them to bite. So I head back along the gravel edge, toward some risers in a different area. The first ripples of the morning wind are just beginning to roll in. There's a riser, over to my left. I cast out as far as I can. It's really deep over there, so I let the spinner sink, and sink some more. Then I start reeling in. Bingo! Fish on! There's no electric motor to use to get the advantage now, just a slugfest battle royal, in which the Vegas smart money would not be on me. But this is the Basstravaganza, and we are undaunted. This is more fun than I had getting skunked bass fishing this morning. Steelhead jump higher than any other salmonid, and they are proud of it. They love to show off how high they can jump. And these big head-shaking leaps often cause the barbless hook to shake loose. But not this time. Nylon line is really stretchy, like a rubber band, so there's still tension on the line while the fish is going crazy. I would have had little chance staying hooked to this fish with a big stiff rod and no stretch line, like I was using for bass. But with my little soft rod and 10-pound mono line, my odds of landing it increase with every second it stays on the hook. There's no way to control it at this stage. All you can do is hold on and follow it around. I'm hoping to gradually lead it towards the camera. You can see me leaning back so that the fish has to pull against the weight of my whole body. This is one of my favorite techniques against steelhead. It's called being old and fat. If I had a decent cameraman, he'd be right up behind me at this point, shooting over my shoulder. But my cameraman isn't even paying attention. He's off somewhere watching butterflies. You can see that the idiot cameraman put the tripod in the only place where I cannot land a fish, right behind the only drift log on the entire beach. Way to go, jackass. Beaching a big fish like this is the best way to land them. This fish is just about ready to pose for the camera. Before we bid it adieu, when you finally convince them to pose for the Basstravaganza, lead them gently toward the beach. Steelhead love to twist in spirals, and they often wrap the line around their body. I had to gently unwrap this one, never letting the fish touch a sharp, dry rock. Then quickly slip the single barbless hook out of the fish's mouth, and it is done. Another shimmering chrome ambassador from the cold northern ocean. Now, go find yourself a girlfriend or a boyfriend and get busy making about 1,000 more just like you. This is why I made the effort of coming all the way up here on this hot summer day. I never try to catch a lot of steelhead. They're like good whiskey to me. A little bit does wonders, and it's usually better than a lot. Did what I came for. I load up and head home without making another cast. You know, most days it's really hard to convince any fish to pose for the Basstravaganza. And then you run into other fish that are just total camera hogs. The minute the camera starts running, they can't wait to show off. Check out the fish at the start of this segment. Now there is a fish begging to be caught. By this point, I'd gotten enough confidence in my ability to turn the GoPro on and off that I started shooting little introductions. But I blew this one. I'm getting so old that I forgot how many months there are in a year. When I said that September is one of the 3 months in the year in which I've never caught a steelhead, I was wrong. It was one of only 2 months, June being the other. Still, even if I am a dimwit, how cool is it to see a wild summer steelhead, point to it, and then go out and catch it, all on one continuous segment of video? Welcome to the Basstravaganza.
Hi, I'm up at fabulous Ep09 Lake. It's the first week of September, one of the 3 months of the year in which I've never caught a steelhead. Never caught a wild steelhead in September, and that's going to change pretty soon, I hope. Right ahead of us here, a great big steelhead just rolled over. It's the only place in the world I know of where dimwit bass fishermen like me can go with a teeny little broken rod that's been pieced together and pasted back together and a little spinner and catch giant chroma wild steelhead. Pieced together and pasted back together in a lily pad bed where you usually catch largemouth bass.
You can see me reaching for the oar. I'd been bass fishing that morning at a lake where there were no motors allowed, and I forgot that I had a motor on now. Okay, pay attention. Now we're underway. I'm in a hurry, so I turn on the ionic zirconium plasma booster switch on my little Minn Kota motor. I zip into my spot at warp speed, then slow down to start casting. But before I can even spin around, there's another big tin head trying to get my attention. And it does. Hey, wait a minute, pal. I haven't even had time to set my drag yet. Cool your jets. I'd seen this fish jumping previously from half a kilometer away, but it was only later when I looked at the video that I saw it jumping on cue right behind my head. Talk about a camera hog. This fish is desperate to become a movie star. and I'm happy to do my part.
Humpty's tip of the day.
A lot of people ask me, Humpty, how can I catch a steelhead? It's really very simple. If you want to catch a steelhead, look around the lake. When you hear a big splash and you see a huge silver fish with a big pink stripe running down its side leap into the air, go fish over there.
Humpty's tip of the day.
If I race right over to that fish with my zirconium booster power, I'll spook it, along with any other fish along the way. So I patiently creep along backwards, making a few casts here and there. This is almost like big game hunting, where you're stalking your prey. There may be only a few ironheads out there, but they're sizzling with energy today, and so am I. If I had expected to catch anything today, I would have worn sharper looking clothes for the viewers. It's hard to find a good wardrobe stylist when you're way up in the mountains. These fish swam all the way from Kamchatka just to get the chance to appear on the Basstravaganza. Hello! I thought I saw a putty tat. I did! I did saw a putty tat! Heavily fished steelhead learned to stay away from flashy toys, but these fish just arrived from the Bering Sea. They're no match for Andre Mulnart and his Aglia blade. It's only a matter of time now. You can see what I'm talking about. This is my first ever September steelhead. And this is more fun than I had getting skunk bass fishing this morning. It's like bull riding. If you can hold on for the first few seconds, the beast may calm down. You can see me foolishly getting my net ready. Just because they swim near the boat doesn't mean they're ready to come aboard and pose for the Basstravaganza. This fish is nowhere near ready for a net. I haven't seen the fish yet, and it doesn't seem to be fighting very hard. It's coming right into the boat. It might be a little dinker, or it might be a bigger fish just cruising in to check me out before it decides what to do. It's not a dinker. Watch this fish cruise in, look me straight in the eye, and then get the heck out of Dodge. I thought long and hard about distributing this video to the public. I couldn't care less about providing the name of a lake where I'm bass fishing, but these wild fish are disappearing fast, and they soon may be gone forever, like the dodo and the great auk and the stellar sea cow. One jerk who calls himself a sport fisherman could probably exterminate them all. That's why I call this N2 Lake. N stands for nameless, which is what it is on this show. If this run of wild summer steelhead disappeared forever tomorrow, few people would notice, much less care. But I do. So in future episodes, I'll be going into great detail to document habitat degradation due to clear-cut logging in the river that pours into this lake. It's beginning to look like 3 half-hour episodes just to discuss 300 meters of river. I'd like to present this video, along with a lot of spectacular wild fish from this watershed in the future, to help raise awareness for their plight. Ah, a nice cool shower. Another cool thing about wild steelhead is if you can get them close to the boat a few times, you don't have to take a bath for another week. That's not fog in the sky. That's smoke from forest fires. Half the province is on fire. And it's sticky hot, even up here in the high country. It feels so good to get a nice splash of cool lake water sprayed over me. Hey, thanks, Mr. My Kiss. That felt good. Well, now that I've taken my shower, let's proceed with the next step. Any bass in the world would have rolled over and given up long ago. Now you might think that this fish is played out and ready to let me lift it up out of the water. But watch what happens when this fish sees the inside of a net. This is one angry fish. And that's why it's so critical to use a big, soft net. Instead of racing out and lining up to try to catch the fish you see on your video screen, I would like to encourage all Basstravaganza viewers to join with me and other people to help protect these rare wild fish and restore at least a little bit of the high quality habitat they require in order to survive. So we're just about to the end of another episode. But first I'm going to give a little eye test for the viewers. It's like when you go to the eye doctor and look at the eye chart and he flips those lenses and he keeps asking you, which is better, with or without, with or without. Only here you won't be looking at an eye chart. You'll be looking at video from the river just above this lake where we've been fishing, where the watershed has been clear-cut logged, compared to video from another very similar and nameless lake and river that have not been logged. And here's a quick trip up the clear-cut river which pours into the lake where we just fished. This video was shot under similar summer drought conditions. Notice that you can't take a boat up this river because there's no flowing water. Which river looks better? With logging, without logging? Think of yourself as a fish. With clear cutting or without? With or without? We'll be coming back to these spots again. Welcome to the Basstravaganza. Next time, we'll head over to the wild west coast and try something impossible. We'll try to catch a fish out of the Dead Sea, even though it sounds absurd. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Basstravaganza.